All right. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate everyone joining us today. We're looking forward to the exciting topic around agentic AI. Um, Before we get started, in terms of some logistics, feel free to ask questions via the chat throughout the presentation. If we're able to, we'll respond during that period of time. But if not, we do have some time available at the end that we'd be happy to discuss and answer those questions. And if we can't get to those, we'll follow up with an email. In terms of introductions, my name is Brian Searing. I'm the Director of Sales here at TechD. Look forward to the conversation today. With me, I also have Nick. Nick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Brian. So, hi, everyone. My name is Nick Sergliano. I am a technical specialist for IBM's AI and MLOps portfolio, which includes Watson X, so the core platform, as well as AI assistants, which we'll be taking a look at today. And then Sunil is here also. I'll let Sunil introduce himself.
Sure. Thanks, Nick and Brian. Great to be here. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. Sunil Murthy with IBM. I lead the Watson X technical team as part of our US national market, where we fundamentally work with customers designing Gen AI solutions, both the Gen AI and the evolving agentic AI applications, specializing on Watson X technologies, which includes the AI capabilities for Gen AI and traditional AI, as well as the governance capability for managing all of these capabilities. Glad to be here, based out of the West Coast. Focus on working with partners like TechD today. Again, appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Sunil. Yeah, so maybe a little bit more about that. So TechD is an IBM partner. We've been working with IBM for about 15 years now, really focused on their data and AI space. So everything around the collection, organization, analysis, and then implementing that into their business processes. We resell and again help implement those and really help you get the most out of your investment as it comes to the software. With our focus on IBM technology over the last 15 years, we really have a great perspective, or have been fortunate enough to have the perspective of, as the market changes, how do we address the changes for our customers, and how is IBM going to market with those? So we've really partnered with them. And in the topic today, I think we've all seen a lot of changes over the last couple of years as it relates to AI, agentic AI, LLMs, a lot of buzzwords getting thrown around, and there's a lot of noise in the industry. And so hopefully today we could dig into a little bit more about what we're seeing, what is our point of view as it relates to TechD and IBM, how has our partnership grown and really implemented some of this technology for some of our customers, and how that continues to evolve and grow from a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. So throughout the presentation today, hopefully we're able to touch on some areas that you're seeing in the market, some interest that we'd be happy to spend some more time on, really discuss, how can we help you solve some of those business problems. And with that, I'd really like to hand it over here to Sunil, where he'll kind of give a lay of the land as it relates to agentic AI and what do we see going forward.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, we've got a packed agenda today. What I would like to do is to really give you a perspective of the shift happening in the industry that you're all quite familiar with. And just to put that in perspective, we all know that we focused on AI, which is generative with the models and generating text and images and pattern recognition. The AI that generates things for us has evolved to AI leveraging LLMs to chat with us. So the latest incarnation of virtual assistants to LLM-based assistants, where the typical RAG pattern of information retrieval and doing primarily single-step process. So change my address, or what's my benefit. So it's a very chatty in nature, where there is input and then there's action and response from the system. There is some element of generative, but it's primarily single step. Now we are at the cusp of AI that can do for us in terms of performing tasks, labor, things such as autonomous actions, where we tell AI particular prompt on go research something or go do multiple tasks, and the AI system can plan to execute based on your request and basically provide that response and periodically reflect on those response and optimize the execution, if you will. So over time, it gets better and better, right? So that's the advancement of agentic AI. You have single agent systems as well as multi-agent systems. So an agent talking to another assistant or an agent talking to another agent, and so on. So the other way to think about this is, Daniel Kahneman, one of the Nobel Prize winner for economics, he put out the book about system one and system two thinking. So if you think about system one thinking from a human perspective, it's very natural. I want to move my hands to pick up something. I don't think a lot, right? I just do it. Whereas, if I were to plan for a trip from West Coast to East Coast, it's more involving, and it's more involves planning and executing, and more importantly, the dynamic nature of taking the weather, for example, and adjusting my plan. So that's the notion of agent. So system two thinking, that's agent. System one thinking is the virtual assistant based on LLM. So IBM has the view, and this is pretty standard from the industry, the building blocks for this AI era in terms of application modernization and tapping into the advancements. You really need to take advantage of your enterprise data, which right now a lot of enterprises do not have a lot of their enterprise data participating in AI. IBM fundamentally believes that you should to leverage the best of AI and in a secure and governed way. So that's why we have the governance focus as well. The models have to be trustworthy and price performant. So it's not enough to have a 400 billion model that does it all, but a purpose-built model that's open sourced and transparent in what the data has gone into train. And more importantly, the models that you can use with your data with the trust that the data doesn't get leaked. The assistants I spoke about, that's the, if you will, the version 1.0 of LLM. Now we are on the agentic AI era. So if you think about all these, putting all these building blocks into use cases, which Brian will talk about later on, you now have a pretty robust technology fundamentals to take advantage for your enterprises. And by the way, IBM fundamentally focuses on AI for business, not necessarily consumer oriented. So my point of view is geared towards that aspect in terms of business focused. And I mentioned about feed forward systems versus feedback systems earlier on. Feed forward systems is that first generation assistance that does based on the input, provides a response. Not a lot of thinking, not a lot of memory, not a lot of planning and reflection going on. Whereas agents does that thinking, planning, reflecting, and observing so that it can continually optimize the execution path. So those are feedback systems. That's what agents do. Whereas feed forward systems are very reactive. That's what assistants do. Now, bear in mind, agents is the evolution. So agents will likely call assistants, right? And agents will call other agents. So that's the kind of the philosophy when we delve into this agentic AI architecture. So what are the areas of innovation that you would fundamentally need from an enterprise point of view? Well, you need to build agents so you can tap into the build frameworks out there like LangGraph or Crew AI or IBM's own research-based B framework. And you'll also have an SDK that IBM provides to build your AI. And by the way, you can use whatever tools that you're comfortable to build agents. And one of the most popular one is Microsoft Copilot. Absolutely use that to build, to make it productive, but understand that that fits into the broader context of how do you make those agents participate in the enterprise context, which we'll talk about in terms of the framework that is executed in production. IBM also believes this middle layer in terms of offering a very robust partner ecosystem with pre-built AI agents as well as partner agents. So think about all the different capabilities such as the domain agents for sales, HR, procurement, IT, and so on and so forth, where you have robust systems like SAP or Ariba or SAP Ariba or Adobe or ServiceNow. You need the agents from these software applications to participate. We also have domain agents that understands those particular domains. So we believe in pre-built AI agents to optimize the productivity. And then at the top of this is you need a robust orchestration of these tools such as ServiceNow or SAP or Adobe and others to orchestrate very effectively. As I mentioned, agents will call other agents. So multi-agent, is going to be the norm. And then have this notion of a supervisory agent to optimally route, plan, and reflect and observe, and more importantly, govern the behavior in this task execution aspect. So these things form the stack, if you will, in terms of building your own, working with integrating with your existing investments, tapping into some pre-built domain agents, and effectively orchestrating these with an AI agent ops. Agent ops is focused on the governance and optimizing the execution. So these are the areas of innovation. Obviously, if you think about where we are in the market, it is evolving. So you're gonna probably expect additional things to make this more effective. But this is the time in the point in time statement where we are in early 2025 to effectively leverage the agentic AI innovation. So let's talk about what an AI agent involves, right? An AI agent essentially needs a bunch of knowledge. So AI agents need to grasp that knowledge based on maybe your knowledge base, your existing documents, understand the terminology, glossary, and so on, and then tap into the existing tools, right? So I mentioned about some of the examples earlier on, and work with other agents, maybe custom built, maybe provided by the other software capabilities. And then the behavior of these agents need to be managed. So guardrails, guidelines, channels where you're interacting with this agent. If you think about the AI as the new UI, you'll interact with the AI, be it Slack channels or mobile or browser or application. So there'll be a notion of embedded AI agents with the channels, whatever the user is using. So if you think about these three fundamental capabilities that an AI agent needs, knowledge, toolset, behavior, let's take an example of sales, for example. So a sales agent, think about sales prospecting agent. This sales prospecting agent requires knowledge. Knowledge could come from a bunch of your company's sales prospecting best practices. Maybe there are enablement collateral in a repository that this can get access to build the knowledge system. Understand the glossary, for example, CRM stands for customer relationship management, and so on and so forth. And the ability to tap into the tools. In this case, a sales prospecting agent may want to tap into backend systems, an application that understands sales, a CRM agent that works with a CRM system, a research agent that can research a prospect based on their 10K filings or SEC filings and publicly available information such as web search. And then the behavior of this sales agent, where there are company guidelines to update the backend CRM data and then create that opportunity perhaps based on the prospecting agent's output. So if you think about this example, you can see how an agent starts to tap into those three areas that is characteristics of an AI agent: knowledge, toolset, behavior, right? So let's quickly touch upon a simple architecture. It is simple, although it's busy slide, because if you think about the from the left to the right, if you're a sales agent, I have a meeting with a particular prospect and I would like to have a compelling pitch to go talk to this prospect. Well, in this case, you're building an agent, use whatever tools you have, maybe Copilot, maybe Crew, maybe IBM provided SDK, and you have this notion of an orchestrator agent, which is the sales agent that collaborates. This is the typical multi-agent orchestration scenario. Collaborates with Salesforce. Maybe it needs to go tap into the SAP Ariba system on understanding the existing client's entitlement, if this is an existing customer or not. Maybe if it's an existing customer, there are service tickets in ServiceNow, so the agent needs to collaborate that information as well, and also tap into web search and other research tools that are available in the tools catalog on the right side. And our partnership with TechD in this scenario, TechD is also helping to rank and semantically provide the most optimal pitch deck and prospecting sales play that can go and feed into the pitch deck agent itself to create that compelling pitch, compelling presentation, compelling call scripts, whatever that may be. So you can see how the orchestration agent, in this case, the sales agent, interacts with all these different tools and works with the input and output of each one of these and provides that required outcome that's expected from the sales agent, which is in fact creating that compelling pitch for the sales person. So this is again a pretty high level, and the secret or magic behind this is the IBM AI orchestration powered by watsonx Orchestrate. The AI orchestration agent really works with pre-built tools, documents, expert AI agents, assistants perhaps, and also works with the process involved. Essentially there's a process in the back end that this integrates with to work with the process mining and process modeling. Data integration is a key aspect as well. So you'll have vector databases or lakehouses and content services. And let's not forget the governance is a key aspect, because obviously there is a generating aspect with LLM, but also the context between an agent to an agent collaboration. The context need to be governed so that the agents does focus on working on that particular task and doesn't go do all kinds of scope creep work. So we need that very good governance mechanism for these AI agentic systems. So that's what we've got from a capability perspective with watsonx Orchestrate to orchestrate these emerging AI agents. So hopefully that gave you a good understanding with an example of an agent. Think about three things that an agent needs, right? Knowledge, behavior, and channels and tool sets, and work through the IBM's approach where we are really working on ensuring that you work with whatever tools you're familiar with, very open. So you have Crew AI or Copilot, that's okay. Orchestration of these AI agents is what we specialize on, providing that unified experience, providing that enterprise readiness and trustworthiness that is required to launch this into production. And by the way, we do have this in production. The sales example I gave you, IBM uses that internally called Ask Sales, working integration backend with Salesloft and Salesforce, as well as working with ServiceNow. So that's a real scenario that IBM actually has deployed for over 25,000 of sellers within the organization. Similar to that, there is also Ask HR for HR domain. So you can see how this is maturing, and the trustworthiness in terms of underlying models which is purpose built, not one single model, but different models for doing different things so that it's cost optimized and enterprise ready. So that's the kind of the enduring difference that IBM brings as you look into investing in agentic AI capabilities and future proof your application. And the best way to do this is also with a partner. Over to you, Brian, to take over on the use cases.
Thanks, Sunil. Yeah, that was a great overview of the platform and the, kind of the space that we're currently seeing in. And I think one of the areas that you mentioned too is IBM's position as, your enterprise AI. So we're looking across applications, across platforms. We're not trying to fit into one specific bucket, but really connect the enterprise and leverage the agents to interact and complete tasks that are necessary. And really important. So yeah, as we kind of look at the landscape and the tool chest that IBM really has to offer, we saw a unique opportunity, as Sunil pointed out, is to also offer and collaborate with the platform to provide some of that additional capabilities. So we've certainly started to leverage that open platform and help build out some of these use cases for some of our customers. In terms of use cases, I think that's always a question that we get asked early on in a cycle, right? Is, hey, where are you seeing this? Where is it deployed? How is it successful? Why is it successful? And I think from a use case standpoint, you could really break them down into internal and external use cases. Walk through a couple examples here, and some are across both internal and external. And some of the agents and the way we've set this up could actually service both internal and external, all via the same platform. One of the key areas here is around employee onboarding and training. It's still a big enhancement that the platform has, a lot of pre-built capabilities to leverage the skills that are already in the platform. One that I did want to touch on a little bit further, one of our customers is actually leveraging this around their HR. So they're implementing the solution or have implemented the solution. It's a large social media company that are using the multiple agents to ultimately interact with their knowledge base. And their knowledge base is diverse. They're a multinational organization. And so they have different data, different benefits, depending on which region of the world they're in. And they need the agents to interact with that data separately and have a very secure path to do that. So they're using a combination of different knowledge repositories that have been built out, different agents to connect with those, as well as some of the Slack integration for their employees to interact with the data. So the way they are able to communicate and ask questions is all through Slack. And then depending on what type of information they're looking for or what task they're trying to complete, a different agent would then take that and complete the task or identify the information that it's available to them. What's really interesting about this one as well is that Sunil had mentioned, there's other ways to create chats or there's other chats available. This company in particular was leveraging at least 3 chatbots, and leveraging the platform to interact with all of those to complete certain tasks. So it's really to improve that employee engagement, help them understand the data, understand, in this case, their benefits and what's available to them, quick and easy. That's just one. Another one that I think is really important, and this one kind of goes across both internal and external, is that IT support. So working with a semiconductor organization that really needed to understand very technical data to help provide insights to both their internal support team as well as customers that were coming to interact with them. So what we were able to do is interact again with, build predefined agents to then interact with their knowledge base that was both on the web, it was through PDFs, it was through internal documentation to find and comb through, again, very specific responses as it related to their products that they were servicing. The important thing here is that, understanding the data and be able to respond to a specific serial number, a specific product type is critical. So it's understanding that by setting these up, there's guidelines that we have to create. There's business rules that have to go into it, all to make sure that as an individual is interacting with these agents, that it's following that strict requirements. So they're getting the right response. So they're having a positive interaction with the agents. The last thing we want to do is build the agents that all of a sudden are just going right to a human anyways. So the goal is really to leverage the platform that's available to put in very specific rules and understanding and leverage the agents to do what they're meant to do. Again, in this case, both internal and external consumers are able to leverage this platform, and depending on how they're interacting with the chat, will give them a different experience. So there's multiple agents completing multiple tasks based on who you are and how you're trying to, or what you're trying to accomplish. Other tasks, as you can see here, financial reporting, I think, is really interesting. Just leveraging chatbots to do both maybe summarization of specific financial documents, but then take that a step further and then maybe do some complex computation. So it's not just leveraging large language models, it's also maybe leveraging SQL and understanding kind of how those two interact together. Document summarization, I think, is one that we see pretty consistently, and that's used in a variety of different ways. Nick, can you go to the next slide, please? Perfect. So external, and I think this one's really kind of unique too, because everyone's worried about hallucinations and how are my customers going to perceive this. But on the flip side, there's a huge return if you do this correctly. So being able to interact with your consumers, your customers, when they want to interact and actually help them through a process is really important. And it also has a big return when done correctly. One of our customers is, in the gaming space, and essentially they were struggling with the fluctuation of queries that were coming in. On a monthly basis, they could have less than 10,000 questions, over 100 to over 100,000. So that was very challenging for them to keep up with the influx and the changes in demand. It's very hard to hire seasonal workers based on unknowing, demand. And it's also difficult to provide a very consistent response when you're getting in so many different questions at different times of day, and ultimately just hard to kind of keep up. So what they did is they looked for, AI, agentic AI, to help them with that. By leveraging, out of the box capabilities with agents, and then also leveraging, more of your predefined and document store type of information to provide answers. So they're using different agents to, one, connect with, website type information, what's readily available, what has been changing because it is in the gaming space, to frequently ask questions. How do I do a certain task? Those are all really well defined. But then also to actually connect up to the individual itself. So if they know it's Brian that's calling in, how do we make sure we give him a unique experience based on his interaction with the organization? And then to connect to their backend system and their CRM to then move some of that process and questions through, again, to make sure that the next time I come in, I have a unique experience that is specific to me. This one in particular has, it's a great story. As I said, they had fluctuations in call center, which was the big reason for investigating the technology. And by implementing it correctly and really leveraging the platform that's there, they saw a reduction in about 80% or were able to answer about 80% of the questions that came in on the first time. And of that, 30% of those were answered by Gen AI, right? So they didn't have pre-planned processes. They allowed it to really leverage large language models with governed responses to come back and help answer those questions. So they don't have to worry as much about seasonality. They're able to really leverage the platform for what it was built for. Customer support too. I think one where we're seeing a really big increase in interest and use is actually around like the public school systems or school systems in general. So we've helped school systems really put out this agentic AI to meet their consumers, which are both employees, so teachers, administrators, students, and then students' parents. So they have really three primary users of the platform. And depending on who you are or what your need is, you will get a different response, right? So if it's a student coming in to understand their classes or to see who their advisor is, there's an agent built out to interact with some of their back-end school processes to give them a unique experience. If it's a parent just wondering if it's a snow day, they come in and really kind of interact with it that way. And then also if it's a school or administrative teacher, right? Hey, just asking general questions about the school, maybe dates, maybe the calendar. But then also a framework where if I come in anonymous, I can just ask general questions. I think what's interesting with this one too is depending on the user, they are getting some very interesting questions as it relates to some of the Gen AI and capabilities of what different users are asking. Um, again, though, the key is just providing that touch right away when and how the consumer wants to be met and really give them a response that is governed, understood, and adds value. So again, by leveraging the IBM platform along with the TechD services and NeuroSeek, we're really able to provide those unique experiences and leverage the Gen AI capabilities that are available. Um, in terms of some of the other use cases that you see here, I think some of these also just flow into that customer support, right? Like answering frequently asked questions. So we'll have an agent that can answer those within the customer support side of things. Um, handling routine inquiries. Again, that kind of goes along the lines of FAQs, but there's also, from a student standpoint, individuals that maybe they need to register for classes. So how do we kick off that for a student and kind of implement that into the platform? Appointment setting, very similar. Hey, I'm a student that needs to talk to my advisor. All right, well, let's get the agent working. It's pre-trained, pre-built to complete that task. Providing technical support. Again, the previous discussion or previous use case that I mentioned, that was built for both internal and external. So a technical individual who has to maybe help their customer through a technical issue. How can AI enhance that by providing relevant information, relevant documentation to answer and complete the task? All of that leveraging multiple agents to really, again, do what they were trained to do, and then call different agents if necessary. So variety of use cases, I think there's plenty more out there, and they continue to grow where and how, the organizations are comfortable and what we're seeing. So I think there's a lot out there. Happy to discuss, more of these with anyone in terms of where we're seeing success, where we're seeing the most return, and how can we implement that for your organization. Nick, I think with that was really what I wanted to cover on the use cases. But again, with Q&A, happy to talk in more detail.
Yeah, no, that's great, Brian. And I'll switch to the demo here. Okay. Everyone able to see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, how's that?
We can see it now.
Okay, yep. Perfect. All right, so for the demo today, we'll be looking at how IBM leveraged the watsonx platform by creating and deploying these specialized domain agents across HR, IT, and procurement. Now, Sunil talked earlier about the transition from assistant to agents, and now we'll be able to see how they can reason, take action, and automate more complex workflows. In terms of enterprise productivity, we're moving beyond, I'll call them one-off generative AI use cases, to AI more as the engine that can help get things done on the employee's behalf. So throughout the demo, notice how we'll be interacting in natural language and then seamlessly switching between different domain agents based on the question or the use case, and I'll call them out as they happen as well. Now, the example agents that you'll see in the demo, such as Ask IT and Ask HR, again, like was mentioned earlier, have actually been implemented at IBM and scaled across the company. This was part of an initiative called Client Zero, which was an effort by IBM to use their own technology to improve productivity within the company. So the original goal was realizing 1 billion in productivity, and we've recently surpassed 2.3. So an example for Ask IT, right, is it can address 80% of the top support issues that come up among users. And then Ask HR, which has been around for a bit longer, has seen 10 million interactions and 97% manager adoption to handle exactly some of these same use cases, which you'll see. And it's also built on that same technology. So with that, I actually want to start with HR. So the first set of prompts here are designed to simplify, personalize, and then automate HR support for employees and managers. So it can handle tasks in multiple areas, really, including compensation, learning, employee mobility, time and attendance. Again, to start off simple but personalized, we're going to ask, show me the holidays that I get off this year. So the agent's built-in LLM is going to reason, it's going to understand where I'm logged in as a user and then show me those holidays. So this level of personalization is subtle, but it makes a big impact on the user because it depends on what your work location is, depends on what holidays you may get off. Next is going to be generate an employment verification letter. So beyond, beyond basic FAQs, agents can help complete tasks by calling skills or automated workflows. So the agent knows what input it needs to give this customized letter and then send it to either a financial institution or an apartment leasing office. Now, as I go through this, this is a little bit more prescriptive because we're dealing with job titles, salary information. So we need a little more control over those LLMs for certain use cases. And then watsonx Orchestrate gives you the ability to do that. So for example, it's going to ask us if it wants to create a letter of employment, right? We can hit yes here. The name of your bank or your verifier. So I'll just put my name here as the example. And then email address as well. Okay, so then you can say, do you want to include salary details? We'll say no here. Okay, so that's it, right? In 3 or 4 steps, we're able to have that, employment letter generated and sent. So this process that could have taken days or weeks previously can be done, in what, 30 seconds here. So it's very simple. For our purposes, right? We'll reject and exit, so we're going to end that conversation flow. But in a real world situation, you can go ahead and get that emailed and sent. Another use case within HR is going to be enrolling in benefits. So if I say, how can I enroll in my benefits? This is going to leverage conversational search. And it's also going to ask for a clarifying question, right? So if it does have any clarifying questions along the way, it's never going to leave you stranded. So we're going to look at benefit enrollment information. Okay, so this is essentially relying on a RAG or retrieval augmented generation pattern here. So it's searching through unstructured data, such like, an example would be like a PDF of the IBM benefits, and it's going to find and return the answer to the user. Now, when the employee asks about these enrollment windows, benefit options, or making any changes, the LLM is going to go find the relevant information, right, and return it in a conversational way, just like an HR professional would. So we're going to switch gears a bit. This is going to be the start of where the domain agents begin. So I can change use cases completely. I can jump from HR into procurement. And it's all within the same interface, again, because the agent can reason and route across these different assistants and use cases. So as the first example for procurement, if I want to type in here, summarize the contract within digital devices. So this is picking a top invoice within it, and now we can drill into the contract. So instead of reading through pages of legal documents, I can get a nice concise summary here, in seconds. So it's a big time saver for procurement teams who would otherwise spend hours, scanning and searching, these contracts for critical details. Because it is, multi-turn conversation, and there's several essentially steps built in, right? We can dig further into the contract. So instead of just summarizing it, we can ask, are there any risks involved? So instead of just pulling information, it's engaging in a reasoning process. It looks for clauses related to risk, which means faster decisions, reduced manual work, and then better contract risk management as well. Another use case for procurement would be invoices, right? So being able to have a nice consolidated dashboard for all your vendor invoices. So notice, again, subtle difference, but the way that the assistant's responding, right? Sometimes we've gotten lists, sometimes we've gotten like a yes or no or a bubble answers. This is going to be in a nicely formatted table, so we have a good overview of our invoices and all relevant information associated with them. So this can connect to external systems like any backend systems to pull and organize the invoices by date, for example. And then again, if we wanted to, dig further into this, we can say, what is the invoice total from a certain one, right? In this example, we'll say, mobile gadgets. Now, there's two places where it can pull information from. So it's asking us which one. Okay, so it's going to summarize, the invoice for Mobile Gadgets Inc., what the total is, and and some other relevant information. So that's a step further. Now, again, the last one is going to be IT here, which we've talked about as well. So again, seamlessly switching. Notice we're at Ask Procurement now, but as soon as I say something like, reset my password as an example. All right, so we're switching gears one more time, and now we're working with the IT agent. So if we wanted to choose from this list, let's say I needed help with my password for my Mac as an example. All right, it's going to give us on-screen instructions to be able to get my recovery key, which I can choose if I want to, right? And it's going to output that for me as well. Again, the key here is to help the user solve these these IT support issues, to free up the IT department to work on more prioritized tasks essentially, and help the user get their resolution faster. Another one would be something like is my device compliant? All right, so we can just say yes, right? And we see that it's compliant, it's under warranty. And then notice this is a big thing as well, right? So if a conversation flow is ended early, or we switch topics because the system supports topic switching, it recognizes that we didn't finish the previous topic and asks if we want to go back to that. So it understands the context and where we were, so that you can continue and follow off from previous steps. And then the last one that I want to show for IT here as well is going to be creating a support ticket. So you can just ask here, create a support ticket. Oh, sorry. See, again, because it's asking if we want to continue with the previous topic. Now we can hit no, and now we can say create a support ticket. Okay. So we'll say yes, and then it's say describe the issue we're facing. If we say something like VPN issues. Okay, so before we actually open one, does it want to assist us and find troubleshooting steps? We can say yes. And again, it's helping us to solve it before we even have to open that support ticket, so it's being proactive. And it's just going to output relevant steps that we can try and verify and test just to resolve our VPN issue, even before that ticket gets submitted. All right, so it's going to output, again, a nicely formatted list for us here. And then if we need to, right, we can still open that support ticket. So it's still allowing us to have that option essentially. Okay, so that's a quick look at the domain agents. I do want to switch real quick to another demo that I have, which is around agent governance. So, with implementing any AI use case, it needs to be done safely, and that's where governance comes into play. So you have your AI governance, which is your frameworks, policies around your AI tools, and then model lifecycle governance as well. So, I'm going to pause this and talk over this here, but essentially this is a governance dashboard. So this is where you can have visibility where AI is across your enterprise. So it brings all the different stakeholders together in one place. Just to call out a few of these here, you can see what models you have by department, what models are compliant versus non-compliant, right, within these different departments and within your use cases. And then everything within the platform starts with a use case. So, the different stakeholders, again, will be able to fill out the information such as use case risks, different regulatory requirements that your organization may need to adhere to. But if we wanted to build, a use case and a governance structure around these agents, we have the ability to do that. So this first agent is going to be a portfolio rebalancer for, a financial services company, for an example. Right. So what we're doing is we're creating a new agent here, and it's going to be for fund withdrawals. I apologize, it's going kind of fast. I'm trying to pause it here so everyone can get a good look. So we created a name and a description for the agent. So this is going to automatically withdraw funds on the customer's behalf. Right. And then we move to automated workflows. So again, governing these agents, we need to be able to have a step-by-step guide on data gathering and is this approved for our organization? Again, those compliance requirements come into play. So this is a very customized, and simple way to create those workflows. So there's automation built in between the different steps. Let's say, for example, data scientists are you doing data gathering for a use case, right? You can send an automated, notification and set due dates for how long that step should take, and then it could notify compliance or it could notify legal. And this is very user-friendly and easy to change, again, based on the use case that you're working with. So the point is to be able to have that governance structure around these agents that you built to do it in a safe way to implement AI. And then lastly here, this is just showing, again, you have a regulatory assessment and then a risk assessment as well. So what you may need to be aware of, as you build these agents. Again, hallucination is a concern. So is it a concern for our specific use case? So the different stakeholders can get involved and tag it with low risk, high risk, so the different individuals can have that complete view across the enterprise. But with that, I know that was a lot in a short amount of time. I will open it up for Q&A, and then we'll answer questions about anything we talked about so far.
Thanks, Nick and Brian. Let's open it up for any question and answers. And are there any questions on the chat?
No questions at this time.
All right.
And if there are no questions, we will plan on sending out the recording. It should be available. If there are any questions that you do have, feel free to reach out to any one of us and we can either answer the questions or get you to the right individual. All right. Nick, Sunil, thanks so much for your time today. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.